A growing list of Democratic leaders reportedly expressing new concerns about Hillary Clinton. The Democratic frontrunner did shift her tone yesterday, taking, quote, responsibility for the controversy over her secret email server while Secretary of State. But the New York Times has interviewed more than 75 Democratic leaders and is now reporting they have widespread frustration at her handling of the email scandal. Some supporters saying she may have opened the door for Joe Biden to jump in. Former Governor of Pennsylvania Ed Rendell put it this way, quote, "They've handled the email issue poorly, maybe atrociously, certainly horribly. The campaign has been incredibly tone deaf." Is he a friend? Not seeing this as a more serious issue. She should have turned over the email server at the start because they should have known they'd be forced to give it up. But at this point, there's nothing they can do to kill the issue. They're left just playing defense, end quote. This after a new survey finding the first word which comes to mind when voters think of Hillary is liar, followed by dishonest. Kind of the same thing, isn't it? And untrustworthy. Though strong leader is also on the list. Experienced Republican political operatives say it is way too early, though, to write off Hillary Clinton. But as one of them told Politico, quote, "Was Bill Clinton perceived as being honest? No. But it didn't stop his candidacy. But Hillary is not Bill Clinton. Likability means a ton, and if you're not likable and not viewed as honest, you have a problem." Jedediah, why are you shaking?
Yes, I'm not. Wow, you have great peripheral vision. I was doing this in the corner. It's true, because when you're likable, you can get away with a lot of stuff. You can charm people. He was a great charmer. Hillary Clinton is not charming. She has come across arrogant. She has come across like she's doing us a big favor by answering a few questions. That does not work well with the press, and it doesn't work well with voters. And that's why you see in that recent Quinnipiac, you see the numbers really tightening up. If you look at Jeb Bush, if you look at Marco Rubio, if you look at Donald Trump, all three of them really tight race with her now. So I think it's absolutely true that this has opened up the door for Joe Biden, who, by the way, is very likable and won't need to be as strong on policy because he will charm a lot of people that Hillary Clinton can't.
So maybe a charm offensive, Julie, is what she needs.
Yeah.
To not be offensive, because, I mean, if your friends like Ed Rendell are talking about you that way, what do you have left?
And Ed Rendell is a huge supporter of her, so, I don't know about that comment. But you're right, and Jedediah is right as well. I mean, what she needs to do is two things. One is she needs to change the narrative that she's not trustworthy. That's a very tall order, but she needs to do it. And secondly, she desperately needs to change the subject, which she's been trying to do the last few days.
Yeah.
I have said for weeks that she needed to get out front of this issue of the emails. Finally, she stopped joking about it. Finally, she's come out and said what I was hoping she was going to say weeks ago, which is I screwed up. Not on so many words, obviously, but I think that was the implication. And so I'm relieved that she's trying to at least get her arms around this in a sensible way, not trying to pretend this isn't a big deal, because it is a big deal.
All right. So if Hillary Clinton can get past this, let's say Tucker for just suspension of, any thought about the actual case that the FBI and Justice Department are waging now with regard to her email server. Maybe everything works out. Does she walk away unscathed by this?
No, she's already scathed. By the way, you should book Ed Rendell for this show. He cannot control himself. He tells the truth. It erupts out of him. He's the best.
I like that. You do too.
I know. I'm a big fan. Hillary Clinton will be the Democratic nominee because there's no option. The sleeper story of the summer is the revolt against the elites that's going on the Democratic side. It's not just the Republican base that's upset about the candidate being imposed upon them by the donor class. The Democrats are even madder. And it's the same story. It's nepotism. It's someone who's been around too long, who's not fully, who's sort of inept. And they have no choice. They've been force-fed Hillary Clinton. It's like a Soviet grocery store. There's one product and you're going to buy it and you're going to like it and just be quiet. And there's deep resentment. But unlike, again, the Republicans, they don't have anywhere else to go.
All right, Stacey, I'm going to come to you on this first question after I set this up, because you know what? This was breaking news yesterday, a breaking news story during Outnumbered. The fallout began before we even got off the air, and it continues today. Republicans blasting Hillary Clinton for language she used at a campaign speech in Cleveland. Now, remember, you saw it here first as she compared some Republican views on women's issues to those of terrorist groups.
Extreme views about women, we expect that from some of the terrorist groups. We expect that from people who don't want to live in the modern world. But it's a little hard to take coming from Republicans who want to be the president of the United States.
The RNC immediately demanded apology, and her Republican rivals are saying this.
I will take care of women's health and women's health issues better than anybody, and far better than Hillary Clinton, who doesn't have a clue.
She's desperate. She's panicked. Her campaign is in a bad shape. Her views are the ones that are radical. Here's what's most offensive about it. They won't call terrorists terrorists, going all the way back to Benghazi and even before that, but they call their political opponents terrorists.
Wow. Jeb Bush tweeted this. Hillary Clinton compares pro-life Americans to terrorists, but defends despicable PP treatment of unborn. Planned Parenthood is what that stands for. It's a tweet, so you don't have that many characters. Her priorities are totally wrong. And from Scott Walker, Hillary Clinton has some audacity when under her leadership actual terrorists have flourished. No apology from Team Hillary, by the way, a spokesperson responding, quote, instead of trying to manufacture outrage by twisting Hillary Clinton's words, Republican presidential candidates should stop pushing extreme policies that would limit women's reproductive health care choices. End quote. Twisting her words, we played the sound bite. Stacey?
Yeah, well, you know, this just goes to show her Byzantine behavior is just not going to play in the 21st century. It's not. And the difference between Bill Clinton and her is he was a womanizer. He wasn't in quid pro quo with God knows who because of the emails she's erased. We don't even know who she owes favors to, as Andrea said yesterday. You know, this is, it's, and she's got blood on her hands. Benghazi. There's just so many things that are different between her and Bill. You know, sleeping with other women and, you know, putting us into national security trouble is a big difference.
But one
Julie,
thing,
you look like your head's going to pop off. Excuse me, Tucker, but I want her to breathe.
you're a compassionate
I don't even know where to
person,
begin
Harris.
on that. Let me just address your statement. It's what I said earlier. She's trying to change the subject, and this is exactly how she's doing it. She's trying to.
Is this effective?
It is for the base. Oh, absolutely. She's going back to women's health, which is something that's important to the Democratic
She does
base.
realize she has to get to a general election.
And you know what? That actually, well, don't forget, Planned Parenthood, by the way, polls much better than any political candidate on either side of the aisle right now. Planned Parenthood is very popular among American voters.
Not anymore.
But the reason
It
I
can't
say
be.
no, well, I'm giving you polling information. So the reason I say this is because she's doing exactly what I suggested she do, which is change the subject, get off the emails, change the subject, get the base excited again, and explain to the base what it needs to, why it needs to pay attention.
I'm sorry, can we just sweep aside the political considerations for a second and just consider what she's saying literally? She's saying that anybody who opposes any restriction on abortion at all, if you're uncomfortable with sex selection abortions, for example, or federal dollars going towards selling baby parts at Planned Parenthood, not just pro-choice, but like all the way, no restriction at all, that you're like ISIS, that's by definition an extremist position. That's not in line with the public's view of this at all. We have a lot of polling on this question. She is far out on this. I don't like calling people extremists because I think it's a tired, cliched thing to say. But on this specific topic, she is literally an extremist. How does she get away with that?
But extremist is very different from calling somebody a member of a terror group.
Right.
I mean, because that has such a visual in our minds.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, half the country is pro-life. I don't know who she thinks she's talking to, but if you poll people throughout the country, most of them would say that partial birth abortion is not acceptable and that would be extremist. So on the issue of abortion itself, take the nonsensical terrorist language that reeks of desperation aside. This issue, it doesn't make any sense what she's saying. People don't want their taxpayer dollars going to an organization that may be involved in profiting from the harvesting of baby
it's
parts.
not. Except
that's
it's not.
extremist. And well, let me tell you, those videos don't look too good for Planned Parenthood. Nobody at that.
Those videos were doctored. But that's
Nobody
not the
over
point.
there is
videos are not
happy with what we've
doctored. How
seen
can-
with respect to Planned
They're
Parenthood.
cruel and
Doctored.
horrible. I mean, prima facie, doctored or not, what you saw in the video is repulsive.
It's
And there's no
repulsive.
Doctored or not, I think the whole point is if it's doctored,
No,
I can
the
make
people
anyone
said
They can't
say
be that
And there's no
doll.
defending
They said
them.
what
Let's
they
be
said.
They
Senator
said what
Marco
they
Rubio,
said.
though, raised a legitimate question. If you wouldn't call what happened in Benghazi right after it happened an act of terror, and those were terrorists, yet you can call that with the people who may not necessarily agree with you politically, how does that really help you
So
out?
here's my policy in life. My policy in life is you don't make analogies to Adolf Hitler or the Holocaust, and you don't make analogies to terrorism.
Smart.
I wouldn't do that if I were.
That's a good policy.
Thank you. I live it.
Meanwhile,